as someone who has been hiring for a long time, whether it's just been me making the sole decision, whether I've been sitting on a panel, I want to share what I look for when it comes to applicants, candidates who make it to who make it before me. I will break my podcast down a little bit because what I look for in the college or boot camp or high school graduate, those qualities are obviously different versus someone with a few years under their belt looking to kind of go into middle management. And obviously those are also going to differ from what I look for when it comes to someone trying to get into that top tier director, global manager, maybe in VP or C suite. So for this podcast, I really just want to keep it focused on what I look for when it comes to employees who are coming for entry level roles. So I'll try to just keep this quick. I don't think there's too much to say on the subject, just because it gets a little bit more nuanced and complicated later in the career, and those are the podcasts I'll really try to save my commentary for. But when it comes to entry level, I try to just keep it simple, not overly difficult. One question I like to ask them is just, tell me about yourself. And most people like to list off where they went to high school or college or boot camp. Or I look more just kind of how you describe yourself, right? There's no right or wrong answer here. I'm not going to tell you the guy who mentions his high school is immature, he lives in the good old days or something, or I'm not going to tell you the guy who tells me his hometown, like, why do I care? It's not that. Um, I just look at how this person describes themselves, right? How they sell themselves to me. That tells me a little bit about how they perceive themselves. And I like when the candidates show me a lot of confidence, a lot of pride in then themselves and their background when they list it to me. um, Confidence goes a long way. Knowing yourself or who you are, or having some prepared response, it'll go a long way. So that's one question I like to ask them, and all I look for is really not so much the content of what they say, but a lot of their posture, their facial expressions, their hand motions, and just the energy they convey to me. If someone kind of conveys like that they're not proud of, I don't know, who they are or their background, like that, that's someone I'm less likely to kind of um, choose when it comes to employment versus the candidate who says I'm from here, I've accomplished this is who I am, these are my hobbies, stuff like that. Those are the things that I look for. Another question I like to ask is just tell me about your weaknesses. And I employees are all over the place. There's no right or wrong answer here. I I do maybe dislike when employees say a weakness. A weakness of mine is um, I don't have good work boundaries. Like, I will overwork myself or I will work too hard. They try to say that as a weakness. I don't want to hear that. Boundaries with work it's a valid weakness, right? Some people can't set a boundary at work, but if you're an entry level person, I don't want you to tell me how hard you work, because you're not at a level where that where that really translates to um, something of relevance to me. So when they start saying stuff like that, or they say, I work too hard, or I know too much, something like that, I'm like, that's just a weird statement. I like people who actually have true weaknesses they're working on, right? One weakness might be I don't have great communicative skills. I'm trying to learn more about how to give presentations. I'm taking a LinkedIn learning course, or I don't know how to deliver bad news to customers, or I don't know how to speak to customers under duress or under difficult situations. That's something I'm trying to get experience with, and I hope to gain that in this opportunity. Um, Again, it's just tell me meaningful weaknesses, and it really helps if you have some plan for how to address it. Right, that really goes a long way. So the first question is tell me about yourself. Second one is tell me your weaknesses, and then also I'd like to hear strengths. And if people can tie in their strengths into how it translates to this job, that's great. If someone tells me one of my strengths is, I can, I don't know, flick a pistachio shell 50 feet, through a small knot or like a small opening. I don't know what to do with that, right? I don't know how often that's going to come across in the workplace. But if they have some strength that, I'm very empathic whenever I'm dealing with a customer, I know how to switch my lenses to their point of view and pretend that I have I don't know the inner workings of a product or a company. And if I was in their shoes, I try to look at, how would I feel? And that helps me better assist them. Something like that. Again, it's not to say that there's specific answers I'm looking for, but these are just examples that really help. With that said, I sometimes ask technical questions. I can't really cover them here just because that depends on the role. But these are the universal questions, and they're very, very standard. Tell me about yourself, strengths, weaknesses. Sometimes I'll ask people about the technical stuff. It's dependent on the job. I don't look for someone who knows something. I actually prefer if they tell me they have some topical knowledge, but that they're willing to undergo training, they're willing to educate themselves or teach themselves, they're willing to learn it on their own or learn it on the job. I appreciate that sort of candid honesty with regard to our candidates. I shy away from the applicants, the interviewees who say, "Oh yeah, I don't know that," and then that's sort of the end of the sentence, because that tells me that you're not really interested in learning. And if you're not interested in learning this, which is a part of the job, I don't know how coachable you're going to be later. Because when I hire someone, I don't just hire someone for that particular job. I'm looking at someone who might be here long term. Not to say that I romanticize every candidate and I imagine all of them someday sitting in the CIO's chair, but I like to have candidates that in the long term I can expect them to grow. So when a candidate says, "Oh, I don't know that technology," and they kind of, they don't seem shy about it, or they're not saying, "Oh, but I'm studying it," or "I'm willing to learn it," or something, or maybe we can make a professional development plan, me and my manager, and I'd be happy to learn it, something like that. If they don't say it, it's usually a no from me, unless everything else goes really well. And likewise, if someone tells me they're weak technically, but they have great, soft skills and they're teachable, that goes a long way. So very short video. There's not a ton that I'm looking for, just because I'm really sharing what I look for in people who haven't really done a whole lot. So if they haven't accomplished much, there's really no reason to kind of grill them with a list of 20 questions. I try to keep it very relaxed. I try to keep it as a candid conversation. I don't even think I've been on a panel in some time for an entry level job. That's just something far removed from me. I don't even think it makes sense. Some companies do it. I don't know why they do that. I think it's inappropriate, just because entry level people should not have all these hoops to go through. It should be just some casual conversations, and just, are they teachable? Are they someone that you see kind of growing with the company long term? You'd be happy to have them around. Or are they someone who you think just wants this job and doesn't really plan to grow into it, or mature with the company, because you don't want to have to go through hiring again. It's a pain in the rear, and it's something that I don't enjoy interviews for that reason. That it's just a pain to go through, right? Not just for the candidate, but for me to make time and coordinate with other people. All of that is a headache. So that's why I always try to make sure that we hire smartly, so that we can avoid going through the process again.